Wait a few seconds. Of course, they're hearing me say wait a few seconds, but hey, it doesn't matter. All right, everybody. Hey, guess what? This is Education with Ed. It is Sunday, March 17th, 2019. I have my son wanting my attention while I'm trying to do a show. So get back, boy. Back. There you go. Anyways, we got an important announcement that Ed's going to be doing for you, and it's disastrous. I mean, even my son is reacting to it. So, Ed, why don't you let them know?
Sorry, I turned that off. Go ahead. You there?
Yeah, I'm there. I turned it over to you, but you evidently were busy listening to me twice. I mean, I know I'm good, but I know I'm good, but not that good that you have to listen to me twice.
Well, that depends. Anyhow, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to bring up some things I want to bring to people's attention. First, I'm bringing things to the point that I'm going to take a little time off. I've got to get some filings done. So when I get the filings done, we'll get them up on the website, and then I got to take some time off. I got some personal things to take care of. And then as taking care of some personal things, I have some other things I have to take care of dealing with the circumstances of what I'm dealing with my medical situations. So this is the one thing that I've got to go deal with some stuff on medical. So I want to bring it up so that way there's not a conflict of interest with what I'm doing and the circumstances of what's going on. And so the one thing because the thing that I want to get into is dealing with judges. Okay, the one thing with judges are required by 28 USC, all right, USC, or United States Commercial Code 372, to have an oath of office on record. And you got to make sure they have an oath of record on the spot. If they don't have an oath on the spot, they are not a judge. I don't give a shit who tells you they're a judge. There ain't nobody in the world in the universe could tell you they're a judge if there's not a certified oath. And you do never go in front of a judge. You're supposed to go in front of a grand jury. A grand jury is 6 men and 6 women, or 12 men and 12 women, whatever it is. And that comes down to the perpetrator and the injured party. That's divided with the injured structure that both sides get to do it, because this goes back to the structure of our communes, as you could call it, because I don't do with British terminology well, because everybody knows that one. So everybody's got to live in the neighborhood, so everybody's got to know what's going on. So this comes down to mutual respect. So this is where I want to get into dealing with reading some of these administrative rules that some would call, but I call them laws. Because, see, I don't deal with statute codes and administrative rules. I deal with law. Constitution is the law of the land. All right? So, and then I put out an email and a letter out dealing with a sheriff that finally came out, and they just call himself a constitutional sheriff. Now, I sent it out, and we're putting that up on the internet, so I want to make sure that we get it out there on the channel. I did not talk to the producer ahead of time to at least put a flash cue on the structure tonight on it. But, it is not the function of our government to keep citizens from falling into error. It is the function of the citizens, lawful bloodline natives, to keep the government from falling into error. All right. Now, this was a court case that was done by the American Communications Association. This was done by the United States Commercial Code Industry. Because remember, American Communications is the commercial industry. And this is 1950. Remember, they changed some of the names to change the game growing up, and people didn't realize it. And, and it's learning how these things work, how these people change the names for the game. So this is still an active court case. So this is under the American Communications versus Dodge 339 US.US 382.442.1950. So with this, it explains a heck of a lot. So this is the other point that gets into it. And if you actually read the Mulberry and Madison case, and we do put that out a lot, looking at, I'm going to start doing some things on this. But I figure we get this out and people get to comprehend a lot more of what their freedom is compared to their privileges. Remember, every time that you put, and we'll put up a deal, I believe I sent it to the producer, the whole structure with a notice to clerk, because I recommend, you can put the 2 paragraphs, recommended minimum 2 paragraphs of that to put in it, but you can put the whole thing in it. I look at the 2 paragraphs of minimum to put in for a safety net, because if they don't file that petition that some people would call, it's not a petition. You always put things as an affidavit. You put it as a petition, you're a whiner. All right? You have no rights. You give your authority over to the corporation, and you're sitting there going, I'm a wham, you do what you do. You put in a petition, that means you have to be responsible and liable for your actions. You can't say that, I had one too many or whatever. Shit, You get in a wreck, take the responsibility, deal with it. I mean, that's the one thing that we forgot how to be responsible. And don't forget, your government, everybody keeps going, your government. Remember, we the people are the government, and this is where they convince you in democracy. This is the mind twist of these fools. Your government, when it should say your elected and public employees, define the word person. But they're going by your government defines the word person. And technically, a person is an inanimate object, does not exist. It's a stump on a log. There is no such thing as a person. It's a fictitious corporation. It, like everything else, does not exist. And the one thing that we want to get into when you're filing your paperwork, always put in the structure of the Agents Foreign Principles of the 1938 Foreign Administration Act. You want to make sure you put this stuff in your administrative rules of your administrative rules. Because when you write your paperwork, you're writing your administrative rules for your structure. So, it comes out to knowing the knowledge and the education of how you step away for your knowledge to become this point of view of how to secure your word. It's like I always recommend people that, if you're going to file your paperwork in court, know your standing. Are you a lawful bloodline native? Are you a legal citizen? What law do you have to go by? Do you have to go in Article 1 administrative court that you go in front of a judge? Or you're supposed to go in Article 3 court because you're a lawful bloodline native? We do have 2 court systems in this structure. I'd much rather go in the court system that we put in under the Constitution than the religious court system. I don't believe in religion. So that is the one thing that when it comes down to these things, you have to protect your bloodline. People say, well, why is the bloodline so important? You got this thing, what is that, 1, 2, 3 or whatever, that's doing all this stuff on the bloodline deal. It's all over TV and stuff. Let's get your bloodline. And they're trying to determine who's lawful and legal in this country, and people don't even have a concept of what the reality of what's going on. They don't. Because if they can get rid of the Constitution, we are no different than any monarchy state. We won't be no different than China. We will be no different than Britain. That's why the walls are so important to go up, so we're not cannibals here in the next 30 years. Remember, right now today, 60% of your food in a grocery store ain't food. It ain't food. I grew up in the 70s where, chicken back then was chicken. Today it's inflated with salt water and chemicals and it's so juicy and everybody thinks it's wonderful. But it ain't a chicken where you didn't have to eat as much. You didn't eat twice as much back then with real meat, real structure of the food system that we have then compared to now. So, we are living into the structure of right now today. Your electronic technologies, are 100 years behind times. So that is the one thing when you look at these things is bring these things up to par. So I want to make sure that you are aware dealing with the circumstances. Now, when it comes down to the Constitution, and remember, you're sheriffs elected and public employees. But if they're running the sheriff's department, they are under a corporation. They are liable. And I don't care what any of these people fantasize and tell you about, they are liable. You know, the law says they're liable. And that is their administrative law as well as the Constitution says they're liable. And I thought I had that put in front of me, but I don't have that right in front of me, the administrative rule. But also, too, they take an oath under Title V. And if you don't know Title V, and I've been preaching that for years, please read Title V. Because without Title V, we don't have a future. Because if we don't have elected and public employees, then we are the slaves. And judges, all judges are lawfully required by 28 U.S.C. 372 to have an oath of office. The oath of office they're supposed to have is a constitutional oath compared to what the secretary or somebody else might allegedly tell you. The constitutional oath is to the Constitution that gives man and woman equal rights. There's no religion in that oath. Now, I do disagree with Pelosi and them are trying to do, take the religion of swearing on the Bible. Because anybody knows the structure of that going back, why they swore in the Bible. And go read what the Bible under F. Roosevelt said. Yeah, we'll get that posted up on the website. But I want to see if anybody researches that before I give you that information. You might be surprised, really surprised. Say, and the office of oath comes in an administration admiralty jurisdiction. So if a judge does anything, that means if you do a traffic infraction, fines, anything, property taxes, that's a crime against we the people. Say, I mean, and that's the one thing that reading this stuff and going to new.org and trackers and pulling this stuff up and realizing what we're putting out there. In fact, you can read the information. We want to get the information out to you. And if you hire an attorney, you give up all constitutional rights. You have not a constitutional right because you give that structure over to an Article I court, administrative court. So you're giving yourself over to a judge and your attorney, and you have no say. So they get to barter how much it's going to cost. So your attorney can come back and says, well, I get you out of this for $15,000. So, and it depends. It depends how far to barter. Sometimes I go back and forth, and he'll come back and says, well, it needs to go another $10,000. I'll get you off this. Well, that's where the judge comes back. Well, I need so much to pay off everybody else involved. Everybody needs a chunk of the deal. And see, that's not a constitutional court system. See, this is where we bitches about how corrupt the court system is. The court system ain't corrupt. It's you. You're corrupt. Think about it. If the court system is corrupt, how come it's corrupt? Because you allow it. It's your responsibility to stop it. How come you're not stopping it? You know? I mean, it's your government. You can't bitch at the government for doing stuff that you're allowing these people to do. The general public is allowing these men and women to commit domestic terrorism on them, and then they want to bitch. How can you bitch when you're allowing the terrorists to do this? And then you go back to the other side, oh, pray, and it's going to go away. Praying doesn't go away when you got the domestic terrorists that you're allowing stealing, rape, robbing, and pillaging from you. See, it's not logical. Where's the common sense? Where's the brain power? Where's the structure that your brain is telling you to be comprehensible on these things, to think these things out? And by note by the judge is a state officer. All judges are state officers. And this is through the ruling of Scherer versus Rhodes, 416 U.S. 23294 SCT 1683, 1687, and that is 1974 case. See, judges are public officers in a corporation. The only way they have constitutional structure if it's filed. Like I said, I've been preaching about it for years. There's two structures of the court system, lawful and legal. Either you're a lawful bloodline native and you go in constitutional courts, or you're immigrant and you go through statute, codes, and administrative. Doesn't matter if people like it. We're not here to please people. The Constitution is not here to make somebody happy. The Constitution, is to protect the soil around us, so that way in 50 years when everybody becomes cannibals and do all the crazy stuff that's going to happen, then it's going to happen. You got to look at it. If you believe in what you believe in, hey, we're supposed to be saved. And it's up to you to say what's supposed to be saved. So if you don't believe in that structure, and then those wells don't go up, and all of a sudden we got the structure where everybody becomes cannibal, everybody eats themselves to death. What a concept. Sort of what we're doing today. But step out of the movie, watch the production. It is an interesting circumstances when you see these things, how the structure is around you. That's why when a public employee uses your name, anytime the public employee uses your name without your written expression, give me your ID, give me your papers. He didn't have written expression from you. You don't have to show him the paper. Yes, you take the chance of being shot. Been there, done it. Been there, been shot. Been around that circumstances myself. So it is one of those things that we take the risk for standing up on our rights. I don't believe in the other structure. I believe in my right of freedom. I don't believe freedom is a privilege. Never have, never will. And I still want to keep up and bring to the attention of people that we do have a lot of groups out there. I've had a couple that I went back and brought things forward on them, because I got information that people want me to publicize. There's quite small groups, but I'm not going to sit there and battle these guys out because I got too many other things to do. I got to get my paperwork and get these couple other battles I'm getting ready to do out. When I get these battles out, I guess the first time I'm going to start going public with things. I've never thought I would actually do that. I'd much rather be in the backwoods on all this stuff, but apparently that's not what I'm supposed to do. So I'll go ahead and start opening up the doors on these things. And let's not forget, because an artificial identities cannot take an oath. A judge, a police officer cannot take an oath. Okay, it has to be written in an affidavit form. It's not in an affidavit form to the Constitution. His word does not mean, or her word does not mean. It's a capital offense, a literally beheading or hanging offense. And see, people go, well, we shouldn't have done that. We changed all of that. We became this thing called democracy. Well, hell with democracy. That's what screwed us up to begin with. Common feeling, emotions. People can put their feelings in a box and go, that's my feelings. I don't have to feel anymore. No. We want to get back to either you're a man or a woman, and this is the way life is. It would be back to the point where, hey, you chose your mate, that was it for life. You didn't play this game. It was all up front, not the games that are played today. And let's not forget the one thing people get into Social Security. Social Security is a right, so long as you're a bloodline native and so long as that you had a filed right. And the other way of filing that right is when you're 18 to claim it. Now, you have to claim it under the original structure of 18, you go back to the Civil War of 1886 or military structure, or you can go back to the Social Security Act of 1912 when that was started, and that came out with FDR. All right, that's where your Social Security number and all that was put into place. So, and we have that, so that way your Social Security is not supposed to be, I don't know. I do know. It's not supposed to be tampered with. It's only for lawful bloodline natives. Immigrations are not entitled. Okay, that is to protect us in our age and retirement. That goes back to, if you have anybody knows any real history, That goes back to the pirate days, and anybody knows, I don't know, when did the pirates start? Pirates started from Roman Catholic Church called the Romans of the British government. And you go back to that to the 14th century. Okay, and then the piracy and all that, when they started in the Piracy Act, so that way if somebody pirate lost a limb or something like that, that was dealing with the wars. When the British government couldn't kick the United States butt, when we started standing up and we fought the Muslims and won them, so all of a sudden, you can type all this stuff up on the internet, and it's on the website, I know that, dealing with this heritage. Because, see, with the British government, when they decided to allow this stuff to be the pirates after there was no more wars, this was after the United States kicked the British government's ass. There was no more wars at that point because all of a sudden the British government became the pirates out there. And you can look at Blackbeard and all the other stuff in real history. All this stuff is in history. So that's the one point that when you look at the stuff in history of what, why, and how do we get here? Stepping out of the movie, watch the production, and doing that so we don't relive it. Everybody says, like, we need to relive. It's like, people say in certain books, you need to relive this, No, you don't. We could change history. We don't have to relive terrorism and torture. We don't have to go down that route. We could actually start changing history so that way, pain and suffering is no more. We could get back to being realistic humans. So with the British government, when they started putting everything into the Piracy Act, that you got, if you lost a limb or if you lost an eye or something like that, you got an extra bounty from the bounty of the ship that they raped, robbed, and pillaged. Sort of what the police do today, rape, rob, and pillage the children, and we the people. Oh, shit, you went 10 miles over the speed limit. You broke what they call a law when it's a violation. It's not a law. So we get to rape, rob, and put a bullet in your head because you didn't comply with our belief. So, that's sad, It's really sad. But see, the point is trying to get people to comprehend what the system is compared to what they think it is in their own deal. If there's no injured party, there's no crime. All right? It's simple. If there's no property damage, there's no crime. Your emotions don't matter. Feelings don't matter. Who gives a hell about feelings and emotions? Only you do. They don't exist. Personal and property damage happens by the Constitution. You have to be liable. So, feelings, everybody has that. So, and it just depends on what works at the time it works. So I am getting ready. I'm going to be taking some time off here for a little bit. We'll do some sporadic stuff here in the next 2 months, basically, because I got to get these paperwork filed. I've been talking about this for a while. Like everybody knows, I've been in and out of the hospital basically since last year. And I had a rough time through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. So now I'm going to go ahead and start filing this and start putting the paperwork together and start opening the beast of the belly, I guess, as somebody might say. But seeing that everybody, it's going to be interesting to see how the circumstances start turning out when you do this. Because it's like I was talking about. Everybody keeps going, well, like, in Oregon, they want to charge tolls. Everybody knows, what's going on with that. Like going across San Francisco Bridge, Golden Gate Bridge in California charges $10 a pass now. Where the hell did that money go for the last 60 years? 70 years, 80 years, where's the money? That's what I'm talking about. Everybody goes, we need to raise taxes. We need to do this. Where's the money that you're already paying for? Where did the money go? Walter Bruin's a good explanation on that one. The CAFR reports, if you don't know, type in Walter Bruin. He's got that structure going through the 48 states. Remember, there's only 48 states. Alaska and Hawaii are not part of the United States, period. I don't care what you think. I'm telling you the way it is. Because Alaska and Hawaii are part of a corporation. They are not part of the 48 States Union. It's comprehending what happened with the Civil War compared to what we think is going on. We all get these misdirections on stuff that we're not properly educated in these things. And that's the other point that, I brought up, dealing with your Social Security, because those Social Security. Well, how about the Social Security Children's Protection Act? And that would be 115 635. Okay, they got these things so that way they can rape and rob and pillage the Social Security, so they can put these kids in the state hands, fill them up with drugs for vaccines and all this other stuff. And then when a kid dies and stuff like this, everybody goes, oh, these poor kids. What the hell do you give a damn about these kids? You don't give a shit. I mean, I get tired of a lot of these nonprofits out there, and everybody's going, oh, these poor kids. But then they want you to care for other kids in other countries. Number one, we got to stop being stupid and take care of our own kids in our own country first. You take care of the problem, your own kids, your own structure, the rest of it heals. Look at real history. We're talking history that's now calculated and computerized. We're talking history that was done before most of us even were in existence. And any big gleams of life going back 100, 150 years ago. We weren't here, but we know the history. And these are the things that, knowing the history, so we don't go through this and relive it. That's why it's so important to know the 1938 Foreign Administration Act. When you file on a cop, a public employee, you can always use their complaint form. But if you use their complaint form, you whine, you're bitching, you have no rights. You write an affidavit, you put it in red, ask the federal government and type in Federal Government Administrative Rules red. You might be surprised, because if you don't put it in an affidavit and do it in autograph in red or in blood, it's not living. It has no rights. So, and that's like what I tell everybody, if you're using blue ink, that's maritime ink. Red is dead man's. Gold is royalty. It depends on your bloodline if it matters or not. I mean, those things really do matter. They really do exist. People don't realize your bloodline to your family, heritage and stuff actually has significant effect. It really does. And then let's not forget, March 3rd, 1997, the dumbass William Jefferson Clinton, Executive Order 13037, gave your kids over to the Queen of England to be raped, robbed, and murdered because it became human capital. And so you accept the rape, rob, and murder of these children. You don't stand up. You don't go against this structure that's been passed administrative rule. Remember, these are administrative rules. These ain't laws. The Constitution is law. There ain't no other law but the Constitution. The Constitution gives you rights. No other thing exists that gives you Constitution. Even if you read the Black Law Dictionary, you can go to the 10th edition. Legal definition dealing with 1929. All right? This is performing and threatening financial injury. And this includes using financial injury. That includes using the capital name that your corporation has on your birth certificate. This is 1929. This is before 1930. They gave us these loopholes as these people say, oh, you have a loophole not to pay taxes. Oh, you have a loophole to get out of it. Or you have some excuse to get out of it. And it's like, God, if people would learn the Constitution and come to the reality of what administrative rule is to the Constitution. The Constitution gave man and woman rights. Nothing else gives you rights. And remember, all municipalities are corporations. They have no rights. Public employees of the corporation don't have rights. And let's not forget that they have to have an actual warrant to hold you, and the warrant has to be signed by a grand jury. Nobody else can sign a warrant. Judge has no authority signing a warrant. And we have those laws and administrative rules. I post them up on our website as well as new.Oregon Trackers on the website. It's there. And let's not forget Transvert versus the city of Tampa. And this is 741 F2D 33 -11 Circuit Court 1984. Okay, basically you don't need to have a driver's license, and if they put you in jail, you can sue them. It's $25,000 every 23 minutes. And people are going, well, we ain't getting it. Why are we doing this? We're fighting this. Well, the same thing I told you. When the federal Supreme Court judge told me, hey, Ed, we're bringing in $6 billion a year. We pay out $1 billion, to these people that are whining and bitching and complaining. What would you do? You got $5 billion you got coming in compared to, you're making $6. You got $5 billion in. You got $1 billion going out. What would you do? Rape, rob, and pillage, or do you want the money? You want the jobs? And that's what I've even had. Carson even told me, Johnston, don't you get it? Do you want jobs? Do you want a job yourself? You got to do this. This is why we rape, rob, and pillage. That's called human trafficking on both sides of the coin here. So, it is one of those things. What do we want? What do we want? How do we want to live? How do we want to teach the children how to live? So they can rape, rob, and pillage, and they got an income. Or they can start being peaceful and start cohabitating together, having barbecues, having conversations, talking things out, making things work. So that's the one thing that people don't do. Most people don't sit down and have conversations. I remember when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, people used to sit down and have conversations. Plan things out for a day or two, go have barbecue and stuff. Today they don't. If it ain't based on a 501c3 or some corporation or some business deal, people don't gather like they used to. At least not that I've seen in years. It's not like it once was. You watch all this new economic development, and everybody goes, oh, progress is great for us. Well, how many people have been hurt by progress? And how many people benefited by progress? See, it comes down to these circumstances of who wins and who loses. The one thing we do always suggest is always challenge the judge. And that's why under 22 USC 611 as a foreign agent. Oh, that's 1938 Foreign Administration and Registration Act. All foreign agents, all judges are lawfully required under 28. And everybody keeps going, well, 28, Title 28 doesn't exist. Yes, it does. It's an administrative act of a corporation. Remember, every corporation has administrative acts that they have to run by, and if they don't, they cannot exist. It's part of the structure. We're not talking about human life. We're talking a corporation. If you work for a corporation, you got to determine if you have human life or not. That's up to you. The corporation don't determine that. You do. So under 28 USC 372, the oath of office, and asking a judge, he or she has an oath of office. But this is one thing I've actually had arguments with people over the communication channel, over the phone the last week. Arguing with people going, what does it matter if I talk to a judge if he has an oath? Why do I have to put it in writing? And I said, well, the judge told you he doesn't have to answer that. And the guy, because some people that were upset about that, and I said, well, the judge told you didn't have to answer that. And he goes, well, yeah. So did you put it in writing? Well, why not? And I said, I told you that I suggested this to you a month before you went to court. Put these things in writing. Did you put it in writing? Why did you think it mattered? Well, your case, you got screwed. There's a few people, very few people that actually suggested and listened to what I was suggesting, questioning this. This is why under 22 USC 611, questioning the jurisdiction of a judge. You have the right to do it. So these are the points of what, why, and how. And the only way you could impeach a judge, that's what and I've done recalls on judge. Actually, I've done that in Oregon. There's been actually a couple recalls on judges in Oregon. And there's been a couple successful ones, too. But I'm not going to get into what I've done in my circumstances because that was not public. But I want to make sure that you got to remember the Bar Association runs your judges. Bar Association, I don't give a shit what fantasy people are living. They'll lie to you and kill their own mother and tell you the Bar Association is American. It's not the British government. Lying trash. It is the British government. The bar is directly stated as the British Auxiliary Registry of the King and Queen of England. Look in your history books. That goes back to the 1600s, and it goes back to the 1600s in Black Law Dictionary. You go prove me wrong. I've already been there with Congress. I already had these arguments with them in writings and stuff. And as a matter of fact, we got some of these things on the website, new.org and trackers. But to do impeachment on a judge, you have to file it with your state representative. You have to prove the case to the state representative. So you got to remember, this thing is all military run. This is under tribunal. This is the structure that was written under King James Bible. This goes back to King James Bible in England. So it's separating and realizing how these things were written, where it comes back in history, and how it is filed. So you have to challenge. It's like the old days, you know, the only way that marriage, you were allowed to get divorced from a woman is you had to have permission from the king, and that came from the Pope. Everybody knows that in history. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, so the oath of office is so very important in the Constitution on Article 6, Clause 2 and 3 under Davis versus Lawyers. Surety Corporation. See, these are the ones things is coming, learning how these things develop, where it comes from, how it comes from, where the development comes from. And when these men get paid under the de facto dollar called wages. And it even says that in the court cases with the perks and benefits, what, why, and how. But that's the one thing that, you know, we can get in, I can explain these things, but I want you to do some of the research because I want to see how much people are going to question me down in the time, because I want people to question me to see if they're learning this stuff. And remember, treason under the Constitution comes under Article 2, including Article 3, Section 3. And that goes under fraud. So anything in fraud, you know, you can defraud anybody. And if you're on the 48th state soil, that could be considered a treasonable crime. See, it's learning what the words of these things mean compared to what we're indoctrinized. I mean, you know, it really was a blessing for me that I had a lot of the people I grew up around. And the word government comes from the two Latin words mean mind control. In the United States is a corporation, not a country. And that's 28 USC 3002, Section 15A. See, they wrote it. We quote it. We're not going anything out, you know. I go by the administrative rules, by the Constitution, not by anybody else or religion. So the word government comes from Latin words, meaning mind control. And that even says this structure in the book. And I'm not holding my breath looking for real change and thinking amongst this entirety, you know, population of the slaves. But either you want to still be a slave or you don't. I mean, because everybody started pushing the trees down around this country in the Northwest and everything. The Midwest. We look from the East Coast to the West and look at the trees, all gone. Look at how much is pavement. And everybody's wondering why everybody wants to bitch about, climate control. Excuse you? You know, did you want to sit there and have a condominium or a home? Climate control. You know, stepping out of the movie and watching the production. And remember, if you're filing a complaint or if you're filing assault charges on any elected and public employee, you have to put in writing. You have to put in writing that you are the corpus delicti. You know. So hang on, I got back down noise, but that's the way it is. So, but if you don't put in that you are the corpus delicti, you have no rights. That's a simple thing. You have no rights unless you put in the corpus delicti and you file it with the clerk. You have to file it with the clerk. If you don't file it with the clerk, you're the ones who are denying and you're the ones who lost the responsibility. It's that simple. It's your responsibility. And so it is explaining these things that come down to it, and it is putting these things to practices and putting them together and knowing what common law is, knowing what religion law is, and everybody keeps going common law. Common law of what country? Common law of where? See, and that's the one thing, the 14th Amendment has been proven. It's a corporate debt slave. Trump even came out and said it, and I've been telling people this for a long time. Even, corporations, you cannot do an oath if you're a corporation. You have to do an oath in red. And actually, if you read an oath and that's structured by federal law, it says that you have to do in red. So, and it says it in the paperwork. And I've got stuff that, we are getting stuff really posted up. It's taking us a little time. We'll get it posted up. And once we get through that, we'll get that through to you. And so that was the one thing that when you start putting these things up and you start reading what the misconduct of a public official is, and I do suggest you always try to be respectful before you become rude first, or disrespectful. I've been on both sides of the playing field of that one. But it is one of those things that is to look at. Now, I comprehend that there's been some filings in the state of Oregon that are new. We're going to see what's happening with those. Keep an eye out. You might be surprised what comes up. And so there's a lot of changes that are coming up. So, and don't forget, when you get into the Penal Code 530.5, that's identity theft. So when they steal your car, they ask you to run your license plate, they take your driver's license, it's identity theft. I put it up so many times. Learning what a false arrest is. Looking if you've been falsely arrested. Now you have kidnap, life-threatening, harassment charges. Start opening your mind, learning how it works compared to what you think it is. They assaulted you, so they assaulted you. That's a crime. You put it in writing. And people say, well, it doesn't matter if you file it. Yes, it does. Open carry of firearm. Oh, Penal Code 26350. Carry a loaded firearm in public. Oh, that's legal and lawful. Okay, that's the Penal Code 26350. But that means you're responsible. You're liable. You cannot do crazy things. You have to be responsible for those actions that you do with that sidearm. I mean, it's teaching responsibility. Always assert your rights. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. I'm going to be, like I said, I've got some projects here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to take a little time off because I've got to start focusing on these projects, make sure they're filed. We'll get them publicized out there. Because I'm going to start filing these court cases because I've been running through dozens of people, hundreds of people for the last 3-4 years. And in a way, I died, so I've had some serious medical issues. I've had some things, and I'm not wasting my time. I'm getting my stuff filed. I don't give a shit about the money. Money has nothing to do with it because you can't sit there and do anything with a doubt note. But I want to make sure that these people are punished for what they have done.
All participants are unmuted.
Thank you. Does anybody else like that anything? Nobody?
Ed.
Yeah. Oh, you got my other 2 emails I sent you too, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, Ed, I did. I greatly appreciate it too. I've already sent
a
certified mail.
But you see where I went with some of the directions of the wordings compared to what you were doing?
Yes, I did. I'm going to save that as a template for the next one I get ready to write.
Okay, good. Because, see, you were questioning them, but you're not putting that in. The one thing I would like to suggest to people, never put anything that I'm certifying or I'm saying anything under perjury. No, you're not doing anything like that because you're not a government agent that's under perjury. You are the employer, so you act on your rights and responsibility. So go ahead.
Anyway, that 26350, is that that penal code for Oregon, or is it just
public penal code for 48 states? It's not general, it's for 48 states.
Okay.
So when I get back to it, I'll email you that whole section. I think it's 9 or 11 pages. So I'll walk you through some of the stuff I just brought up tonight. So it'll walk you through on it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got anything to add? Okay. Well, with that, I know we're going to take some time off here for a little bit. I got some things I have to focus. I got to start putting things, filing, and start rocking the boat or raising hell, because I got to start making these things start coming to life. So, anyhow, go ahead. Somebody else had anything they want to add? Okay. Well, with that, tonight, we'll catch up with you. We'll notify you. I'll put that up on the YouTube channel. We'll notify it at the time. We'll still have contact with the several people that, on the main, and we'll get it out. We do know that we've had a few more people that have joined the YouTube channel, and we'll get that out. I'll get that out on the YouTube channel when guesstimate. But I need a few weeks right now. I got to get the stuff finished written up, and start getting them filed. And then once they're filed, then we'll start working on that conversation here in a couple of weeks. So with that, I'll say, may the Great Spirit bless you, Mother feed you, take care of you, and may the Creator look over us.
All right. Thank you very much, Ed. And, well, looks like we're going to have a vacation, but I'll tell you one thing. As Ed keeps me up to date on how he's doing, because I know we're all concerned about his health, and he uses that card many times. Effectively, I will try to keep you guys updated every once in a while, possibly once a week, on how his health is, and in the future might even, if he's taking longer than we expect, the 2 weeks, might even start coming up with little small shows that'll bring information to you. With that, guys, thank you for all the time you have spent with us, all the time you have listened to us, and if you get a jonesing for information again, we've still got old shows.
Not only that, you can always contact us, too.
Yep. You can contact Ed through the
Facebook,
neworgantrackers.com, and also through Facebook. And those who are lucky to have his number, well, wait until he gets back home. And with that, guys, thank you very much, and remember, we're only scratching the surface on everything here, and we're giving you information, but it's your job, your responsibility to take liability for your own actions and do the research and find out if your actions are the proper ones or the misguided ones that a lot of these guys out there do, saying, for $9.95 per hour, I will make sure that you win your court case. It's bullshit. So with that, guys, have a good little bit of vacation, little bit breather, but please do keep researching, because that's going to save you, your family, and your descendants. Have a good day.